Good morning. This is World News coming to you live from Warsaw. I'm Salia Stremska. And we start with the much-hyped European Council on Thursday. Polish Prime Minister Tusk labelled the high-level meeting as a success for Warsaw's key policy areas. Our EU correspondent Angela Skujins has the story.
The Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk sounded hopeful regarding the outcomes of the European Council on Thursday. Now, the Polish leader made these comments at the Polish representation to the EU in Brussels on Friday. This is hours after those high-level talks wrapped up, where those 27 EU heads of states talked about many issues impacting the bloc. This spans oceans to the conflict in the Middle East. But what we heard from the Polish Prime Minister is that the most noteworthy advancements in terms of Warsaw's priorities comprised deregulation, migration, as well as defence and financing. Now, he was happy that those European leaders had finally conceded the value of that Eastern Shield. This is his €2.5 billion project to fortify Poland's eastern border with Belarus and Russia. He was also happy that those European leaders have finally realised the very likely threat of Russian aggression by 2030. Let's take a listen to what he had to say this morning.
To put it simply, by 2030 Europe must be, in terms of its army, armament and technology, clearly stronger than Russia, and it will be. If nothing changes, if we maintain this direction, Europe will be stronger in every aspect.
However, there has been some strident criticisms of this iteration of the European Council. Scott Lucas, who is a political analyst in Dublin, told TVP World that common ground wasn't found across a number of issues. He's specifically talking about the multi-billion euro military initiative spearheaded by the EU High Representative Kaja Kallas. The EU member states also couldn't find any common ground on how they'll cough up the money to fill a €650 billion hole left by the European Union as part of its major push to get the continent ready for any military threats by 2030. Let's take a listen to what that expert had to say.
The EU has to talk about ramping up its defense spending. It does have to increase its capabilities. The showpiece of this is a statement of intention by Ursula von der Leyen, the European Commission President, for an €800 billion investment using public and private capital. But there are immediate disagreements over short-term funding, including €40 billion for Ukraine, which was not agreed yesterday.
But it is not the end of the road for these talks. The French President Emmanuel Macron confirmed last night, as he was being whisked out of the European Council, that those leaders will meet in Paris next week for another round of high-level talks. The aim is to find some common ground to shore up support for Kyiv as it weathers Russia's invasion, as well as those ceasefire negotiations. But what we heard from that president is that security guarantees will be discussed and what other financial support can be offered to the Ukrainian army. We know that the Polish Prime Minister will be in attendance, but even he seems slightly fatigued by the amount of talks that are occurring with no concrete outcome. Angela Skujins from Brussels for TVP World.
And then moving on to Ukraine. At least 3 people were killed and 12 wounded in a Russian airstrike on Zaporizhzhia late on Friday night. The strike also damaged several apartment buildings in the city. According to Regional Governor Ivan Fedorov, the city had been struck more than 10 times on Friday night. A number of high-rise buildings and homes also caught fire following the attack. The airstrike was the second attack on Zaporizhzhia in the past 24 hours. Following a Russian attack on the outskirts of the city with guided aerial bombs on the evening of March 20th, which injured 6 people, including a 4-year-old boy. The Zaporizhzhia region is home to the largest nuclear power plant in Europe, which has been under Russian occupation since 2022 and has featured prominently in recent peace talks between Ukraine and the US. If you don't take a Russian passport, you must leave by September 10th of this year. All Ukrainians living in the territories illegally occupied by Russia must regulate their official status according to a government decree. Our correspondent Oskar Terji, who is in Kiev, has the story.
2 people have been killed and 21 wounded in Russian attacks across Ukraine over the last 24 hours, with the Ukrainian Air Force reporting that Russia launched 214 attack drones across the territory of Ukraine. Now, one of the hardest hit areas was Odessa, the port city, which received multiple strikes, setting fire to buildings and injuring 3 teenagers. Residents of Odessa were also left without power as energy infrastructure was once again targeted, despite promises from Russia to adhere to a temporary energy infrastructure ceasefire. That has not been the case so far in Ukraine. Now, the Czech President Pavel was visiting Odessa, traveling to Kyiv to meet President Zelensky for a meeting on Friday. He said he left Odessa 20 minutes before those strikes occurred. So another close call for European leaders. Now, there's more outrage growing in Kyiv following a decree issued by Russian dictator Vladimir Putin calling for Ukrainian citizens in the occupied territories to what the Russian government's calling regulate their legal status. In other words, denounce their Ukrainian citizenship and gain Russian citizenship, or face forced deportation by September 10th. So this is causing huge outrage in Ukraine with accusations that this violates international law. And a foreign ministry spokesperson, Jorge Tiki, says that the systematic deportations of Ukrainians are part of Russia's policy of genocide in Ukraine. So very strong words there from Kyiv about this decision by Vladimir Putin to threaten Ukrainian citizens in those territories occupied by Russia with forced deportation if they do not accept Russian citizenship by September 10th. It's Oskar Terji reporting from Kyiv for TVP World.
Serbian Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Vulin revealed that Russia's spy services have helped the Belgrade authorities respond to the ongoing anti-government protests. In an interview with Russia's state news agency, Vulin said that the Serbian government is grateful for the support it received from Moscow. Students backed by teachers, farmers and workers have maintained daily protests across Serbia since last November, when 16 people died in a roof collapse at a train station in the northern city of Novi Sad, which they blame on corruption. Serbia's President Alexander Vučić describes the protests as attempts to mount a colorful revolution, akin to the one that toppled Ukrainian government in 2014. Although the protest leaders deny any links to the West, Vučić accuses Western countries of plotting with students and the opposition to implement regime change in Serbia. Mass protests continue in Turkey following the detention of Istanbul Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu, who was due to announce his 2028 presidential run. Dozens of other prominent figures were also arrested earlier this week, and the government announced a 4-day ban on political demonstrations. Tens of thousands of demonstrators gathered outside the Istanbul municipality headquarters on Friday night, defying a warning from Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan that authorities would crack down on street terror. The protesters clashed with the police, leading to at least 88 arrests. Protests over İmamoğlu's arrest have spread to 32 Turkish provinces. İmamoğlu was detained on Wednesday, facing charges including graft and aiding a terrorist group. The arrest came a day after a university in Istanbul invalidated his diploma, disqualifying him from the presidential race, as having a university degree is a requirement to run for the nation's highest office under the Turkish constitution. Anti-government protests in Slovakia continue. Thousands of people took to the streets of Bratislava on Friday in the latest protest against Slovakian Prime Minister Robert Fico. Around 10,000 people took part in the demonstration. Protesters have accused Fico's government of destroying the rule of law, culture and the environment, as well as backsliding on democratic values. Over the last 3 months, tens of thousands of people have rallied every 2 weeks in Bratislava and beyond, demanding Fico's resignation. Moving on to Germany now. With a constitutional amendment, Germany jumps the legal hurdle to rapidly increase defense, infrastructure and some foreign aid spending. This will be financed by increased debt and borrowing. Sasha Farbach reports.
In a high-stakes vote in Berlin, Germany's upper house has greenlit groundbreaking reforms, unlocking billions for defense and infrastructure in Europe's largest economy. Experts are hailing the decision as a game-changer.
We are looking at a tidal change in German politics from fiscal austerity to, let's say, a much more tolerant, more flexible approach to spending money. And, this will have far-reaching consequences in Germany and beyond.
Friedrich Merz, Germany's chancellor-in-waiting, was under intense pressure to push the constitutional amendments through, a move requiring a two-thirds majority in both houses.
Angenommen.
With a key victory in the lower house on Tuesday, he managed to secure the crucial upper house approval on Friday, clinching 53 out of 69 votes, well past the 46-vote threshold. Despite some federal states abstaining, the package passed the final hurdle, setting the stage for bold new plans for the incoming coalition government between the CDU and the SPD, and marking a turning point in Germany's future.
Germany needs an open and honest discussion with its population about the real threat, and this discussion is one of the most important political leadership tasks in the coming years.
This package, which is mainly defense, but not only, it's also infrastructure, education, and climate. So this whole package will be the absolute priority.
Friday's vote establishes an unprecedented new €500 billion infrastructure fund and tweaks the debt brake, allowing for increased defense spending. Germany's President Steinmeier is set to sign the amendment into law, marking a significant step in bolstering Berlin's defense leadership on the continent amid an unpredictable transatlantic alliance. Sasha Farbach, TVP World.
And now it's time for some sports news. Poland's national football team defeated Lithuania 1-0 on Friday in its first 2026 World Cup qualifier. Captain Robert Lewandowski scored the only goal of the match in the 81st minute at the National Stadium in Warsaw. Our reporter Piotr Myszczuk has more.
It was not until the 81st minute when we heard huge ramble at the stadium, but it was also a sigh of relief for over 55,000 supporters that came here to watch the match between Poland and Lithuania, the first game of the qualifiers for the 2026 World Cup that will be taking place in the United States, Mexico and Canada. The author of the goal, obviously Robert Lewandowski, the Polish captain and FC Barcelona star. But after the game, we got some mixed reactions from the supporters.
I think we performed a bit poorly in the match against Lithuania. It could have been better.
It could have been better, but it was okay. The atmosphere was good, and our goal was great.
The game was tough. It looked like we weren't playing against Lithuania, but against Portugal. There was at least one goal. We are not completely satisfied. I wish our team the best of luck in its match against Finland.
So it was not an easy win for Poland. It is definitely one that the team will cherish because it is one step closer towards the end goal, getting qualified to the 2026 World Cup that will be taking place in the US, Canada and Mexico. On Monday, Poland will be able to make another step. It will come up against Malta, but this is an obligatory win for Poland because then the challenge will be much harder. Poland will be competing against Finland and then the loser of the duel between Spain and the Netherlands. But the game of Poland needs to be better, according to many supporters. For TVP World, from the National Stadium in Warsaw, I'm Piotr Myszczuk.
And that's all for this news bulletin, but do stay with us. We're going to discuss the latest developments in Turkey. World Talks coming up next.